Hey everyone, welcome to the lab portion of the mastering lesson. The piece of software that I'm using is Sequoia. Sequoia is specifically built for mastering. You can do multi-track mixing in it too, but it has a lot of neat, nifty features specifically for mastering, which I had gone over and which I'll show you in here. I am going to preface this that the levels are going to change somewhat for the volume of the audio tracks that I have. So just be aware of that. I'll try and mention something before I actually make it quite loud. But here's the quick tour of Sequoia. So right here, I have the two audio files. This is set up linearly because we will be dropping track markers, which will actually be the CD separation points. And it'll say it up here. It tells me the current track position, how much of the CD is left remaining, start point in the CD that I'm at. Yeah, pretty much. So Sequoia, it's really cool for the different metering options that I have. Set up here over to the top right, I have a phase correlation meter. This is just an overall phase relationship of everything. It tells you 0 is everything is perfectly in phase, which normally means it's in mono. If it goes 180 out of degrees, it's completely out of phase and it will cancel. It's just kind of good to see how much stereo information you have and how much will cancel out. I'll show you some of that a little later. Right below that, I have my left-right meter correlation, so I can see if something's tilting to the left or if something's tilting to the right. Very handy to have for mastering. You'll be surprised at the amount of mixes that lean one way or another, and you have to fix it. Right next to that, I have, this is going to be my dBFS and dBRMS meter. On the outside, whenever I hit play, it'll be the full-scale meter. And in the middle will be the dB RMS meter. Down here, this is a 1/3 band octave audio analyzer, which is kind of cool to have to kind of see what's poking out and what not. And to the bottom left here, this is going to be my loofs meter. More specifically, it is my target loofs meter, which you'll see a little bit more. The way I have it set up is 0 on the loofs meter is about where I want to be. If it doesn't quite hit that, I'm perfectly fine with that. But I definitely want to hit -3 to 0. You can set this up however you want. Within Sequoia, within most mastering programs and metering programs you can. In here, I have 0 set up, and it says it right here to -6. -6 will roughly correlate with -6 RMS, though not always, because these are two different averaging meters. Remember, loofs takes into account how your ear works, and dB RMS does not. If I press the M button, I get the mixer window. I am, of course, just using a single track over here, and I have my master fader also, which I can put plugins on. The first thing I'm going to do for demonstration purposes is I'm going to go to my VST plugins. It looks like I have a ton. A lot of these UAD ones I need to take out of there. So the first thing I want to do is kind of show you guys the difference between left, right, mid, and side. And this is a free plugin. I highly recommend it. It's fantastic. I can't believe it's free. But what's really cool with this that I really miss from using the monitor controller at Sugar Hill is you get a solo left, solo right, but you also can solo the mono and solo the mono difference, which is the stereo information. So when I was talking about mid information and stereo information, we can actually directly listen to it. It also has a balance meter on it and a phase correlation meter. It's an awesome plugin, and it is free. MAAT is the company. To Best Control is the plugin. So I'm going to go ahead and close the mixer. The two songs are quite different from each other, mix-wise and levels-wise. This one is a lot more dynamic than this one. This one is more of kind of like a club track. And this one is, I don't even know how to classify it. They're both really cool. The artist is a guy I work with, Hilary Apu, I believe is his last name. I may have butchered it. But he's a great singer and everything. The made-up mix over here, it has the track name right here. There's still a little bit of mixing to be done, specifically on the hook. I feel like the hook could have a bit better separation. On the mix is pretty good. He said that there's a couple level adjustments that we're gonna have to fix. Not that big a deal, but the mix overall is fairly there. But they are two very different songs, so it'll be kind of interesting hearing it. What I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and play first, and I will hit play. I will solo some of this stuff. So what to be aware of is whenever I solo these things, like if I solo left, it doesn't just solo the left. It solos the left, but puts it in the center. And if I solo the right, it solos the right, but it puts it in the center. Same with mono and difference. I'll have to think if there's a different plugin so we can actually hear the side and mono in their respective stereo fields. But anyways, so this is the track It is going to be a little bit quieter than the other one. So anyways, I'll hit play. So go ahead and watch. I will put it into mono. This is all the mono information. You can hear it open back up, which is great. I'm going to go ahead and stop it and play it from the beginning again. So I will switch to the side. So this is all the information that's just in the left and right speakers. So if I flip it back and forth. So what's cool is you can hear the difference. Listen to the beat specifically whenever it comes in. When I'm in mono, you can hear the drums, you can hear the guitar, the vocals too. But when I put it in difference, you can also hear the vocals and guitar, a little bit of the beat because it is a pretty wide mix, so to say. So just listen for that. I'll click it in and out. Watch my mouse down here. You really hear the reverb pop out because the reverb is super wide on that little guitar. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward. I think this is kind of where the vocal comes in. Listen to the same sort of thing. You will hear when I put it in mono, you'll hear the lead vocal stay. When I put it in difference, you'll hear it disappear a lot. But that's everything that disappears is what's not in the stereo field. It's everything that's in the middle, and we can process both of these differently.
There was a time I saw you. That was before you showed me your true colors, babe. Crowned you with different jewels in different ways. But I guess it was all just why did you lie to me? You've broken me up. You paid something that didn't exist. Why did you do these things?
So yeah, you can really hear the difference. We can affect both of those independently. You can see the balance meter kind of lean right as I'm doing that. That's the background vocals kind of going a little crazy there. Let's go ahead and do that again.
Different ways, but I guess it was all just a waste of time. Why did you lie to me?
I can also solo left and right. I'll do that real quick. First left, then right.
Different ways, but I guess it was all just a waste of time.
The cool thing, you can also flip left and right, which seems redundant. But when you're working like in a situation where your room may not be completely symmetrical, or you have all the analog gear off to one side, nothing on the other side, flipping it left and right can help you figure out if there's an issue in the room. I'm using headphones. Y'all are probably using headphones also. So that's a little bit of this. I'll go ahead and let it play a little bit longer so you can hear the hooks and stuff.
To me, you've broken me up. Why did you pay something that didn't exist? Why did you do these things? Maybe you can explain. Became a curse to me. Now I'm sick in hell.
So it's pretty cool. I don't know if you guys were watching the meters over here, but you can on the outside peak, the inside RMS. So the loofs is really interesting because it gives you a definition over time, which is really cool because so you can see the dynamics of the song. I'm going to go ahead and play the first song over here. It is quite different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this song a little bit so we can see the loofs. We can see it's kind of peaking at 9. And I'm going to swap over real quick so we can hear that. Beware of any volume differences. I will play it over here.
Now I'm sick in hell.
So you got to remember this is averages. So now I'm going to play the first song. It's going to be slightly louder. We'll see that in the loofs. I will fast forward a little bit.
Look. It is my prerogative. I studied Christ's apocalypse. Determined from my youth, I'll be a student of truth. I do kick it like Freddie Nabu. I'm catching ghosts and not the one they blaspheme. If you live in single, my prayer find you a Maxine. My black queen strong. I watched my granny build a castle with no capping on a tassel with her.
So just looking at the loofs, we can see that this one right off the bat, overall is louder than this one if I play. We're hitting minus 18 on the quiet parts over here.
She was everything but a softie. She say, baby, don't go.
Minus 17 there. I'll go ahead and kind of let it play out. Anyways, give it a listen, and I'll do the mono thing. So we can kind of listen to what's going on. The hook on this one is really solid. I really, really dig the mix on the hook. But yeah, we'll just let it play out.
When he told me who God is, beyond what in his child, I'm surviving, nigga. I'm surviving, nigga. It just might be the last time you get more. It just might be the last time you get more.
Got my mind made up. I know what I'm made of. I heard when they say don't think that they're going for heartbreaker. Love you, but I made up. Promise to myself that someday I'll be sick of the stars. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Heartbreaker. Love you, but I made up. Promise to myself that someday I'll be sick of the stars.
I'm like Pat Mahomes, you in a zone. This chief will pick you. That's for any errors in my right. For my boys in the pen, I'm the bowling ball.
So it's really interesting on his vocal part. I used some chorus to kind of make it wider. I didn't want to really hit it all that hard so you don't hear it. But what's interesting is if when I put it in the difference, since chorus is mostly a stereo effect, it really pops out. But you can hear how much everything folds down too, from the chorus being really big and wide stereo to where the verse just folds back in to become mono. I'll back it up a little bit. I'll click on the difference so we can hear the side information. Man, you can really hear the hook vocals pop out in the sides. That's all the side information right there.
Look, I'm like Pat Mahomes, you in a zone.
And that's all the side information there. There's not much going on. It's very mono.
For my boys in the pen, I'm the bowling ball. Either you a child of God or a descendant.
So that's really interesting. So just with that, listening to what is in the center and what is in the sides, you gain a lot of information about what's going on, how you can fix things, how you can adjust things. I want to go ahead and switch over to the other song, and I'm going to work with that. I'm going to also change things. So part of what makes mastering programs different than regular DAWs is how you can insert VSTs on it. This uses VSTs. It doesn't use AAX. AAX is Pro Tools only. So if I go to the mixer panel, normally we would put plugins just strictly, if this was Pro Tools, we'd put it on the track. The really cool thing about mastering software is you can go to Object Editor and I can place plugins on the tracks differently and I can gain them differently. And then I can also put plugins on the single overall track, and then I can put plugins on the master bus. For mastering, it's the way to go. If I were doing this in Pro Tools, if I had to, or any other piece of software that doesn't allow for plugins on the audio file, I would just bring this track down to the next, down here. And then I'd work with it like that if I had to. But having it all linear like this is pretty cool. So with just listening to it, the vocals aren't as clear as I would like. So there's some stuff going on there that we can adjust. We could do some EQ in there. Maybe some dynamic EQ would be a better option, because I don't really want to mess with the beat. Whenever the vocals come in, I want the EQ to react. So I do have quite a few plugins for this. I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'm going to use Brainworks has a really cool plugin that is BX Dyne EQ. So this is a dynamic EQ. It's really cool. The cool thing about this dynamic EQ is it's really fast. It is really, really fast, so I can have it to where whenever the vocals come in, I can just have it react right then, and then jump out, and it's very unobtrusive. A little later, I will use a different dynamic EQ that is... It's still pretty fast, but it's not as transparent as this one, so to say. So the Brainworks, if I put it into DS mode, what we end up with here is we end up with two dynamic EQs. If you notice, there's an M for the mid section and S for the side section. So you get a dynamic EQ for the mid and the side. You get lots of different widths. You can see it over here. You actually get oh, that's hilarious. The Amazon listening device kicked on. Anyways, so we can solo. We can basically EQ the sides, the mid and the side differently. And we can solo it to hear how it reacts. So I'm going to listen to a little bit of it, and then we will solo the mid and solo the side and try to figure this out. So just right here, specifically when the da 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 da, that's a little boomy for what I like. If I go ahead and open up our 2-bus control, I'm going to listen to the mono and then the difference. The problem we're having is in these sides, but just for demonstration purposes. Maybe I'm wrong. One thing to remember is the main vocal is going to be in the mid, mid. So anything I do to the mid will more than likely also impact the lead vocal, which isn't a bad thing because it's a little boomy too. If I fast forward,
Different Jews in different ways.
there's just a little bit of cleanup. Maybe I should go for the on the side. Okay. So what I'm doing, these little arrows just link the buttons. Down here is the side chain, also called the key. Up top is the actual EQ portion. So if I hit solo, it's going to work directly off of the threshold. So we're not going to hear anything until it actually kicks in. Let me make this just a little wider. And sweep. So there we can really hear the boomy. So when we're setting this, we're going to listen to it. Remember, we just want to affect the vocal. I don't want to mess with the guitar in the background. So anytime he comes in and goes, that's when I want it to react. So we'll have to set the threshold to where it reacts like that, and we'll hear it kick on and off. So I will lower it down until we start hearing it kick on. Oh, already. There we go. Unsolo. We can also sweep it around until we get to the specific frequency we want. And you can see it kind of dip out at certain points. An interesting thing to note that I've kind of figured out is normally the problems are going to stick out further. The problem frequencies are going to stick out the furthest. So even though I have this set here, when I sweep up and down, you'll notice I get out of a certain range and it stops kicking in. I get into a certain range, it starts hitting really hard, and then I get a little bit out of it, and it hits less. So normally it's going to be the biggest problem frequency is going to react the most. So about right there. Uh-huh.
There was a time I saw you was perfect.
So that's pretty cool. Let's see if we can. There's a little bit of boxiness maybe in the mid portion of the stereo field. So let's go ahead. I'm going to solo this, see if I can get that out. The idea is to clean it up before we do any more processing here. Dynamically looking at it, you can see that the waveform is thicker. The RMS is higher. We've measured that. So, I need to adjust this, probably compress it to bring the average up a little bit. So let's go ahead and see if we can fix a little boxiness out of the main vocal. I'll play it, then solo it.
But that was before. Found you with different shoes in different ways. But I guess it was all just a waste. Why did you lie to me? Like that was before you. Found you with different shoes in different ways. But I guess it was all.
See, it seems like it's not doing anything because it's not reacting. Let's try and get. So let's try and get it. Try and get the actual boxy frequency. I may have to raise the threshold because of this area. There we go.
It's all just a waste of time. Why did you lie to me? You broke
Bypass.
me up. Why did you paint something that didn't exist?
And this is all very, very subtle. Not that big of a deal to if it is subtle because we're doing very, very small changes. We don't have a whole bunch of room because it's just a 2-track. And plus, I like the mix. It's not that I dislike the mix. I do like it. So let's go ahead and roll with that for a second. One thing I do want to do is kind of tame these peaks right here. So let's go ahead and listen to
Now
that.
I'm sick in hell.
There's a whole lot going on stereo-wise in that position, which we will get to. Well, we may mess with that sooner or later. But, so the compressor, I just kind of want a really thick, slow compressor, just to kind of glue it together. This is the Lindell 254E, which is a Neve 2254. Clone. Sounds great for mastering. It sounds really, really cool. I'm gonna do kind of a low ratio, maybe about that for release. I'm gonna back it up because I want it to compress somewhat at the beginning, but really I want it to kind of hammer these transients. This is a kind of slow compressor. It sounds great though. Let's go ahead and see what it does.
But I guess it was all just a waste of time. Why did you lie to me? You've broken me up. I'm sick in hell.
One thing I want to really check out, remember we're wanting to raise the average, the RMS, while kind of pushing down the peak. To kind of level out all these transients and get it a little bit more, steady. So I'm going to hit play. We're going to do the compression and just watch the meters over here. I'm going to get rid of this. When I bypass it, the bypass is in this top right corner. It goes bold. So we can kind of try to figure out what we're gaining by using this. And I may gain it up a little bit as long as we're not hitting zero peak, zero full scale.
I'm sick in hell.
So that's really cool. We're getting to -15. Let me go ahead and do it and bypass it. hit peak there. So I'm gonna bring the gain down. It's kind of annoying. This is stepped. What is this? 2, 4, 6, 8, 2 dB steps. See, in mastering, those smaller steps are worth it. Anyways, let's listen. And just for reference, the meter on the right hand side, this is our gain reduction. So I'm doing about 4 dB, which is actually quite a bit. You can really hear it like focus. I'm going to go ahead and bring back our loose meter. Remember our other one was hitting about here. Because this, we're looking at RMS, which isn't how our ear hears. Switching to the other song. So this is where really mastering multiple songs, kind of gets tricky. If we play the part with instrumentation. This one feels like the impact is a little less impactful than I want. So let's, once again, I'm going to use a dynamic EQ, but this time I'm going to use a different one. I'm going to use the FabFilter Pro Q. This thing sounds great. It's a really cool plugin. It also has an analyzer on it, which is really nifty. But you can also double click it. You can solo the bands, make them dynamic bands. It's pretty amazing. So let's listen. I will try to key in on the bass frequencies, and then we will do, instead of downward EQ, which is what we're doing with the Brainworks, we'll try some upward EQ here. So I really want that thud, which is, man, that's what I want. So if we right click it, you can make it dynamic. So you can, this outer ring here, you can tell it whether to go up or down. That is the range. Unfortunately, everything is automatic. There's no attack and release, but it seems to do a fairly good job. So let's see how this sounds. This is just 3 decibels plus. Okay, that's kind of getting me the low end that I want. Again, it's very subtle. Before we get into that, I want to switch over to the other dynamic EQ and see if I can carve out a little bit of space, because that hook was the one spot that I wanted to touch up, and I was not able to. So put it back in DS mode, just basically, means that it's going to cut. Sequoia, here's a fickle thing with Sequoia. I can't just grab these and move them up and down. You have to right click here and then click that and tell it to move it up or down. It's so ridiculous. But anyways, let me see if I can, it's going to be side information here for sure. Remember, there's not a lot of side information in the verse, but there's a whole lot in the hook.
Look, I'm like Pat Mahomes, you in a zone. This chief will pick you apart. That's for.
So now I'm hearing in the First part, it might be a little boxy there. See if we could do a dynamic EQ in the mid. Remember, I just did side, so we're going to do mid up here. Let's listen to it in solo and do all that.
Look, I'm like Pat Mahomes, you in a but any Indiana sim, I know it all.
Oh, God, you hear that?
I'm the bowling ball. Either you a child or the god or descended from a star that fell. Thus is only right. I get these devils hell. Hell to the king of the Jews that you'll recall. But I know these niggas. For a cup of that table, your bro's a Folger nigga. Folger nigga, you too brown to be so dark, boy. Once a counterfeiter for Marshall clothes and some A6.
So it's getting us a little closer. The separation's getting better for sure. Remember, we're just kind of starting here. Let's go back to this track and kind of listen to make sure the separation's similar.
She wouldn't tell me straight, instead she kept me playing games. She wouldn't come around, she told me just a friend. And now I'm sitting here.
So now the vocals sounds a little muddy, which we can probably fix with the mid. I know I fixed something with this. We'll see if we can just achieve some sort of balance going on.
She wouldn't. Instead she kept me playing games. She wouldn't come around, she told me just a friend.
That sounds way better. Hit save, because things crash. Hit save twice, because things crash. So, I think we kind of have that. They're both sounding cool. A lot of mastering has to do with EQing. There's not a whole lot of compression that goes on in most cases. This one, in order to get the average as high as this one, I may have to do some extra compression on it. In which case, I will try to go for some clearer compression. One thing we haven't done yet is get it up to overall volume. And this is where loose is going to come in, especially in handy. So what I need to do, I'm using Pro Tools shortcuts. What I need to do is I can put some sort of limiter over here, which is where I will start. I will start with a limiter. I have choices galore. I'm just going to use the Brainworks simple limiter for right now. It's a limiter, saturator thing. Yeah, whatever. But yeah, so what I will do is I will be able to boost the gain, lower the threshold. We're going to want the output gain. You don't want it at 0. Maybe put it at -0.2, and we'll boost it up till we get a few dB of gain reduction. We'll see it start showing up more over here. Let's do it on this track, the Made Up track. That's the name of the song. Do it there first, and then try to get the other track closer. There are some tricks to getting things really loud. If you are listening on headphones or something like that, it's going to get loud for a second, so be a little careful.
Yeah, my made up, I don't know what I'm made of. I've heard when they say, don't think that they're going far. Heartbreaker, love you, but I made up. Promise to myself that someday you would hurt me, babe. What can I say? I never knew that was before you showed me your true colors, babe.
So as I switch back and forth, you can see the loose is starting to come up. I'm going to go ahead and do that here, and then at the loudest portion of this track.
Yeah, my made up, I don't know what I'm made of. I've heard when they say, don't think that they're going far.
So loose, you can see this is about where I switched the song. They're about the same loudness. Let's check it with RMS. I haven't done that yet. About -9 there. It is a little louder there. In both dB or RMS and everything. So we have a few ways to look at this. Is we would like this one to be as loud as this one on the loudest portions. How do we do that? Because if we're looking at it, let's look at this frequency spectrum. Because if you notice over here, when the hook comes in, we can see the low end is what triggers it the most. I haven't really looked over here, so let's go ahead and do that, and then I'll just switch to the second song. You know, I really think that upward EQ over here made a huge difference because it's sounding a lot thicker than this one. So let's go ahead and switch back to our inserts for the file. And I'm going to put that same EQ, which is FabFilter Pro Q3, over here. So here's a question. Where do I want to use that Pro Q3? I have a cleanup dynamic EQ. Remember doing cuts and stuff. And then I have a compressor. So that's everything's getting thrown off by this compressor. Where do I want to put it? Before or after the compressor? I'd probably put it after. Because if I put it before, it's going to cause the compressor to compress more. You know, not really a good or bad thing. It kind of depends. You know, what you need to happen. So we're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to right click it, make it dynamic. We're going to listen to it. First off, I'm going to put this back to 0 so we can listen to it. Because I really want to hit the fundamental, which is about right there. The cool thing about this is not only can I make it dynamic upwards, I can also raise the gain upwards if I so choose. So I will probably do a little bit of that because I want it to have more impact. I want it overall a little louder, but I also want the dynamic to kind of hit harder. So let's listen. Yeah, I mean, that's sounding cool. So let's go ahead and go back to our visualization loose. They're similar. This one still has a bit more dynamic overall. Let's look at the dBFS, the full scale headroom that we have left, which is how much we go until we hit 0. See what we got here. About 2 decibels. It's telling us that up here. Let's try this. This seems to be the loudest portion. Okay, so we don't have very much room over here. But we still need to get it slightly louder. You know, doing EQ to do this may or may not be the best thing. Maybe another compressor. I think I said I was going to do that. Let's look and see how much this is compressing. So yeah, let's see. It also doesn't sound as gluey. So I'm going to pick a very, very transparent compressor here, which is the Millennia TCL2. Let's see. I thought, yeah, in gain reduction. This thing is really, really transparent. This 254 is extremely colorful. It sounds really good. The reaction's really good. This is just really clean and transparent. What I'm going to try to do with this, well, this is the Lindell is giving it more of a bear hug. This is kind of doing like the final little finger pats on the back. So I want a very low ratio. I'm going to mess with the attack and release and threshold. And then over here, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a mix knob to where I can mix the dry and wet to make it a little bit more transparent. I may mess with that. Let's just see what happens over here. This also has mid and side, which is pretty interesting. I normally don't do mid-side compression. That may be something we want to try here. So if I do mid and side, it's going to unlink the controls, but it's going to leave them where they are. So now the left channel will be controlling the mid, the right channel controlling the side. You know, if you think about it, all the elements are in the middle, and a lot of the stereo information is in the sides. So if we're compressing both at the same time, you're going to get a bit of like a ducking effect, which we heard whenever it was hitting a little bit harder. You were like, "Oh gosh, what's going on here?" So unlinking them, I can just compress the center information without messing with the sides, which is probably what I want to do, or at least try. So let's go ahead and try that. You'll see the mid will compress and the side probably won't because they aren't linked anymore. It sounds pretty cool. I'm going to bypass both. This is going to be real subtle. Hold on. I'm compressing after I'm boosting the low end, remember? So let's go ahead and move that up. So I click on this. I'm going to hit the up button. You see it jump up. So here's a question. Should I have the Millennia before or after the Lindell? You know, like I said, the Millennia, this one right here, is a lot cleaner, clearer. I also have it in mid on the left, side on the right. The Lindell is a stereo-linked compressor. And like I said, the Lindell is great at the bear hugs. The Millennia is really good at just staying out of the way. So if I put it before, this is, you know, I could probably hit the mid a little bit harder and then have the Lindell kind of smooth everything out afterwards and kind of fix the compression, so to say. Let's try that. Try it. Oh, I didn't mean to move it up again. So yeah, let's try that. I'm going to switch it to over here. I'm actually going to try hitting it fairly hard too. And see, it's only hitting whenever when the kick hits, which is fine with me. But what I'm also going to do is we can adjust the levels of the mid and the side independently here because we have volume gains for both. So I'm just going to boost up the sides a little bit, and that's just going to make everything sound a little bit wider. Yeah, let's give it a shot. Sounds kind of cool.
There was a time I saw you was perfect. What can I say? I never knew that so bad. So the devil inside. I'm happy as hell.
Sounds kind of cool. I'm especially getting some mud over here. So we're going to have to go in and kind of fix some of that. We're also going to do that with the EQ here. So not only can we make this a dynamic EQ, we can also switch it from mid to side. So say I'm getting a little bit of mud in the mid section. I can double click this, click over here, and I can select whether I want left, right, stereo, which is left and right together, mid or side. So let's do mid. Let's actually listen. Now, I believe that is going to solo the mid or the side. Yeah. Okay, so now we're hearing the actual side in the side, which is cool. If I switch it back to mid, we'll hear just the mid. Oh, yeah, right about there. So I'm going to really zoom in, make it dynamic, and kind of have it hit it fairly hard. Remember, 3 decibels is a doubling, so we'll just kind of play with it. That is another really cool thing is if you just hold it on the spectrum analyzer, it tells you all your peaks in the different ranges. So that's kind of getting out some mud. That's at 298. Let's see if we can just brighten it up overall. So if we're looking to do just the main vocal, which is mostly in the mid, then we can EQ just the mid. If we want to brighten up the sides, then we could just do just the sides to brighten it up. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to try to get onto the main vocal and do some boosting and sweeping, and then I'll do the side probably by itself too. Remember, it's going to affect where the instruments, like if the instrument's in the mid, it's going to affect that too. So just something to listen to. That just sounds really cool right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put it back to, I'm going to put it to side. We're going to see. I'm going to bypass it first, hit play, and then unbypass it. So I'm going to just have it affect the overall mix right there. Let's try to bring up the intelligibility. It's a real word, I promise, of the actual lead vocal, which is in the mids. And remember, our hearing is most sensitive to 1K to like 4K. So I'm going to select the mids to try and single out that, and then just really try to find that spot where it kind of becomes a little bit more intelligible. I am clipping a little bit. We will fix that in a second. So here's a good, going back on the intelligibility side of things. Our ear hears around there, the best. That's where we're most sensitive to. So if I want to make that even more intelligible, I can cut cut the sides there because it's vocals in the mid and the side. So if I select just a side where it conflicts with the lead vocal and cut that, it will just automatically make it more easier to hear. Sounds cool. It's subtle. It's subtle, but it really does help bring it out. A lot of times this ends up happening around the body region of the voice, which is about 500. I did 529 or something right here. So let's go ahead and zoom back to the beginning and see how this affects the beginning of the song. Something's going on here. Remember, this was to try to cut out some mud. So let's just listen to just that. Okay, so it's going for the bass right there, which isn't a bad thing. I'm going to bypass it just to A-B it.
There was a time I saw you was perfect, but that was before.
Kind of like that. There is still just a tiny bit of mud here. So I'm going to go into the mid, make it dynamic, and see if I can get some of that out.
Around you with different jewels in different ways, but I guess it was all just a waste of.
Okay, that's sounding way better. So one thing I can do, if I hit this little button over here, it bypasses everything.
There was a time I saw you was perfect, but that was before you showed me your true colors, babe. Crowned you with different jewels in different ways.
You can hear it's getting more, easier to hear overall. Everything's getting more definition to it. Let's see what else we can do here. Let's go ahead and move to the other song because I feel like we've done a little bit of work here. We haven't done as much over here. So let's go ahead and listen with the hook. We will go ahead and start carving into it. The hook, the verse. We'll start carving into that and finding stuff and fixing it.
It is my prerogative. I studied Christ's apocalypse. Determined from my youth, I'll be a student of truth. I do kick it like.
So there is some ad-lib in the stereo that is kind of annoying. It's my bad. I should have mixed it better. But something's going on there. So I'm going to make it dynamic. We're going to sweep it around.
It is my prerogative. I studied Christ's apocalypse. Determined from my youth.
I'm sorry. I meant to put it in this side because I'm doing some weird side effect to it. You can hear it pop out. So it's going to be maybe somewhere around there. It's about 500 hertz. So that kind of makes sense. Oh, man, I left my phone on non-vibrate again.
It is my prerogative. I studied Christ's apocalypse. Determined from my youth, I'll be a student of truth. I do kick it like Freddie Nabu. I'm catching ghosts and not the one they blaspheme. If you live in single, my prayer find you a Maxine.
So this is interesting. When you hold it still, it shows you all the peaks going on, and we can see that there is one right at 476. This is a average from the beginning of playing. Let me hit play again.
It is my prerogative. I studied Christ's apocalypse. Determined from my youth, I'll be a student of truth. I do kick it like Freddie Nabu. I'm catching ghosts and not the one they blaspheme. If you live in single, my prayer find you a Maxine. My black queen strong. I watched my granny build a castle with no capping on a tassel with her.
That sounds kind of cool. Let's listen to the hook real quick, because there's a bunch of cleanup to do there. That was the one spot I wanted to fix. Right off the bat, I want to go ahead and clean up some of that mid going on. You can kind of hear it right there. I'm going to make it dynamic too, because I just want it to kick in when I want it to kick in. See if we can go ahead and just make it brighter overall. So we kind of saw it peak over here. There are some things that we can do with that. I'm actually going to break this into 2 videos. Maybe I'll edit them and get together or something. Because I would like to take this to the finish, just so you guys can hear. There's still quite a bit to do to really get things popping. But anyways, I will get back to this. All right.